And Ghost Makes 4, Toronto, Ontario. A pleasant avenue in suburban Toronto would seem an unlikely place to find the supernatural. But don't tell that to one young couple who moved into the basement apartment of a neat brick home on just such a boulevard. The series of events that inexplicably plagued the pair were serious enough to warrant a de-haunting by Ian Curry and Carol Davis, two Canadian investigators of the paranormal. 20-year-old Rob and his wife Cindy, 19, and their infant son had been in their new apartment barely a month when a growling sound coming from their child's room startled them awake late one night. The couple found the tyke standing up in bed staring at the wall. He seemed scared about something. His mother said the source of the menacing growl remained a puzzlement. Over the next few weeks, the child experienced further episodes of sudden crying and screaming. The couple were at a loss to explain his fearful outbursts. Other freakish occurrences scared Rob and Cindy. A coffee maker spurted hot water for no apparent reason. A window slammed shut on a still night. And most incredible of all, a glass full of milk glided halfway across the table as the couple looked on in amazement. When a friend stayed overnight in the baby's room, she told Cindy about being awakened by a breeze across her face, and of seeing a pale yellow light shining down from above. The couple found out that Ian Curry, an author and former professor, and Carol Davis, a psychic who claimed to have helped police in Canada and the United States. Their little apartment needed, the parents decided, a professional ghost cleansing. Curry and Davis claimed to have dehaunted nearly 60 homes at the rate of $250 per house. Satisfaction guaranteed, Curry told newspaper reporter Gerald Belganou. Davis had been in the apartment only a short while when she pronounced it definitely haunted, but the ghost was not an evil presence, just a poor person in distress, she said. Further, she sensed the presence was that of a dark-haired young man killed in a traffic accident. Psychic Davis went into a trance with Curry at her side. Within minutes, she was speaking for the ghost. The driving of rain, of the darkness and sudden headlights, of the trouble he had caused for his loved ones, and of his desire to go home. Meanwhile, Ian Curry was talking soothingly to his unseen listener, telling him that he was dead, that the accident was not his fault, he should go into the light. Soon the psychic was quiet, her head jerking slightly as if to clear it of the last vestiges of the visiting spirit. Cindy was stunned at the scene. She had known just such a man, a young acquaintance who had been drinking one night and stumbled in front of an oncoming car during a rainstorm. He was killed instantly. It can only be surmised that this ghost had for some reason attached itself to the young couple, but now he was gone, Curry and Davis said. Rob and Cindy were relieved. The apartment was definitely not big enough for 4. Father Ghost, Montreal, Quebec. The Reverend Humphrey Oswald Slattery thought he was quite alone as he knelt at the altar of St. John the Evangelist Church saying his evening devotions. Quite unexpectedly, a chair scraped across the worn stone floor from somewhere toward the back of the empty church. Footsteps came up the entire aisle and paused, as if the person were genuflecting. Father Slattery was surprised at the unanticipated intrusion. He turned around to greet the visitor, and yet no one was there. The ghost of Father Esmond Wood was paying a visit. During the late 1970s, stories circulated that Father Wood, who died in 1909, was making regular visits to the church he had founded over 100 years ago. But unlike some encounters with departed souls, those churchmen who believed Father Wood was back did not feel threatened or frightened. Father Slattery, for instance, said the ghost's presence gave him a feeling of physical warmth. The damp stone church would suddenly be filled with something spiritual, he told reporter Ron Kaler, adding that many times I have felt despondent, but after encountering Father Wood's presence, I leave with a stronger feeling. It's almost like someone's patted you on the back. Sometimes the priest ghost would simply play practical jokes, such as hiding objects like devotional candles for several days and then putting them back exactly where they should have been. Even though Father Wood did not terrorize or disrupt church activities, his occasional wanderings had the capacity to send unwary witnesses into flight. That is what happened to Pastor Harold Parsons. He had been ringing the steeple bells when he had the overwhelming sense that someone else was with him. I could feel someone behind me get up, he said. At the same time, the air seemed to warm significantly. The pastor stopped in mid-toll and left the church. Disturbing the Dead, Vancouver, British Columbia. His name was Johnny. For a period of time in the 70s, he was the best friend of a little boy who lived in Premier Street condominium with a single mother. Johnny was every lonely boy's dream pal. Tall and rugged looking, he made the child laugh out loud as he talked about all kinds of good stuff for hours on end, even if those chats did take place after midnight, which his mother did not especially appreciate. Unfortunately, Johnny presented a problem for the little boy's mother. He was a ghost with whom only her son could communicate, and she most certainly did not appreciate his presence. It started when my son was 4 months old. I found him one night sitting up in bed, roaring with laughter. He was completely exhausted, the woman told reporters at the time. As he grew older, the number of experiences grew. When he was 2, I went to his bedroom one night and found it in chaos. Bedding had been ripped, toys had been smashed, the legs of his bed had been torn off. I heard no noises prior to entering his room. She disciplined the boy, but regretted it later when she realized the 2-year-old boy could not have caused that much damage. Further compounding her anxiety was the speculation by the Woluwe Nation that Johnny was one of their ancestors. The condominium in which mother and son lived had allegedly been built on the site of a nation's ancient burial ground. An officer of Vancouver Psychic Society and the Woluwe Nation chief tied the haunting to the burial grounds. Not until the summer of 1976, when the boy was about 3, did his mother seriously ponder the reasons for her son's strange behavior. That summer was a time of bizarre events. A lampshade spun around, cupboard drawers and doors flew open. A food mixer leaped from a wall, and an ornamental bottle took flight and struck a large sofa. She started reading about psychic phenomena and even experimented with a Ouija board, until the night the planchette moved of its own accord. A Catholic priest told her to burn it. Her doctor thought she was having a nervous breakdown until her friends confirmed her stories. One neighbor said she watched as the mother emptied dirty water from the vase of flowers. After she returned to the kitchen table where the neighbor was sitting, they both noticed water was mysteriously back in the vase. The same neighbor had seen a swag lamp swinging, while her daughter reported hearing growling voices in the house, had seen pictures move, and saw the lampshade spinning. Why didn't the mother act earlier? She told a reporter that it wasn't that easy to face what was happening in her home. For the past couple of years, Jason has woken regularly at midnight and talked to Johnny until 4 a.m. I've heard a grown man's voice talking to my son. I just hide under my bed covers. It's really scary. She said her son first called the invisible visitor Johnny and provided the description of a tall man with fair hair. The boy said he looked like Daniel Boone in buckskins. While the local psychic and members of the Woluwe Nation claimed Johnny was from the disturbed burial grounds, others were not so certain. A Vancouver psychologist who investigated the case said the events might have been caused by psychokinesis, the ability of some individuals to possess enough mind energy to move objects, and that Johnny was merely the boy's way of explaining the events. The psychologist noted, for example, that the child described Johnny as tall and blonde, the same as his father, who was no longer living in the family. It could be that the child had the psychic energy, the doctor said. The boy's mother said the child suffered a traumatic experience when his father left the home. He's extremely lonely, and every child has an imaginary playmate. For her part, the mother was much more comfortable thinking the cause of the problem was psychokinesis and not a ghost aggravated that his grave has been disturbed. Tarlton Maternity Home, Swift Current, Saskatchewan. Mary Gibbs was a young girl of 10, living in Swift Current, Saskatchewan, when her father announced that the family would be moving into a large old place he had found. Housing was scarce in the town during those Depression years, and the reasonable rent made the house doubly attractive. But Mary's mother was not pleased. She and her husband argued over the plan. "I will not move into that house," Marie's mother insisted. She lost the argument, however. It was the only house they could afford, her husband insisted. Nothing more was said, but I noticed that Mom would never stay in the house alone at night, Mary remembers. She grew to learn the reason for her mother's fears. As time went by, I heard strange sounds throughout the house, but more so at night when footsteps ascended the stairs and then went down an L-shaped hall which led to the bedroom, I shared with my older sister, Marie says. One night in particular, Mary's father came bustling into the girl's room. "Are you all right?" he asked, his brow wrinkled in concern. "I heard someone walking around and then the door of your room opened." The girls assured their worried father that they were both perfectly safe in their beds. "I must have been dreaming," he smiled. "He said that so as not to alarm us, I'm sure," Marie says now. It was clear to her that her mother's concerns were shared to some extent by her father. The particular sounds in the night became almost routine for Marie's family, so much so that the matter was hardly discussed. Only after repeated attempts by Marie and her sister did their mother reveal her continued displeasure at being forced to live in this house. At one time, the house had been the infamous Tarlton Maternity Home, a private hospital designed solely for expectant mothers and ruled over by an owner matron known for her cold demeanor and unsympathetic ways, especially toward women whose babies had been stillborn. Eventually, she went insane and died in a mental institution, Marie notes. Soon after that, the maternity home was closed and the property put up for rent. Ironically, Marie's sister being born in the very same room she now shared with Marie. It had once been the Tarleton's delivery room. Due to a very difficult pregnancy, Mom spent 40 days there, and their 40 days in hell, Marie recalls her mother saying, attributing most of her suffering to the matron's cruelty. Marie believes the mysterious noises of footsteps and opening doors were caused by the ghosts of the many women who died in childbirth, at last coming back to claim their babies in the old delivery room. Or perhaps it might be the matron herself, continuing on her night rounds, always at 11 o'clock, the time when the footsteps are the most pronounced. The old house was once called the Tarleton Maternity Home, still stands in swift current. Marie Gibbs said she has been told tenants are never retained for very long, and then she knows why.